These buttermilk pancakes are soft, thick, fluffy and tender, everything a good pancake should be. Whip these up for brunch this weekend, piled high with maple syrup and your favourite toppings. Welcome to Recipes by Karina, where I share with you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe for a new video each week. To start, in a small bowl measure out 1.5 cups or 375 ml of buttermilk. The buttermilk in this recipe is what creates the really tender and fluffy pancakes. There are a few alternatives here if you don't have buttermilk on hand. The first is using my standard fluffy pancake recipe, which just uses standard milk if you have that instead. The other option is making your own buttermilk by mixing milk and vinegar or lemon juice together. I will have a more detailed recipe on my website. This way curdles your standard milk to mimic the texture and makeup of buttermilk. It's a really great alternative if you don't have buttermilk in a pinch. Next, we're going to crack in 2 good quality medium-sized eggs into the same bowl, as well as adding a few teaspoons of a good quality vanilla extract. If you would like the full recipe for these buttermilk pancakes, or for how to make your own buttermilk, it will be on my website, as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. I'll also have a link to my fluffy pancake recipe, which is a pretty close match to these, but without the buttermilk. Give the wet ingredients a good mix together with a fork, breaking up the eggs until everything is fully combined. Set the bowl to the side while we work on the dry ingredients. In a large sized mixing bowl, measure out your standard or all-purpose flour. You'll need 2 cups or 250 grams. You'll notice I give the recipe amounts in cups and grams, so no matter where you live in the world, you should find this recipe easy enough to follow. It's not really necessary to sieve the dry ingredients here. You can if you would like, but it's an extra step that I don't find is needed. A quicker method, if you do find your dry ingredients are a little lumpy, is to use a whisk to give them a mix through and break anything up. I'm not usually a huge fan of sweet pancakes. I like to leave the sweetness to the maple syrup or fruit added on top, but if you do like them sweet, you'll need 3 tablespoons or 40 grams of white sugar. At this point you can also add any extra flavourings you would like. A few options here would be blueberries for blueberry pancakes, chocolate chips, or even apple slices, walnuts and a little cinnamon. Now to get the fluffiest pancakes, you'll need baking soda and baking powder to give the pancakes a good amount of lift. These are 2 very different ingredients, so make sure you don't mix them up. Basically, the difference is baking powder contains baking soda as well as an acid to activate it. So if you don't have an acidic batter, you use baking powder, but if you do, you use baking soda. Too much baking soda and you'll have a very bitter mixture, as there isn't enough acid to neutralize the flavour. We'll need 1 teaspoon of baking soda, as the acid in the buttermilk will react with it, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder for some extra lift to get these pancakes super fluffy. Add these both to the mixing bowl along with a good pinch of salt to round out the flavours and give the ingredients a good mix to combine. Before we combine the wet and the dry ingredients together, we'll also need some butter. You can substitute for oil here if you would like, but the butter definitely gives the pancakes a much better flavour. The reason we're adding it now and not with the wet ingredients is we want it warm so it incorporates much better into the batter rather than it cooling and starting to solidify when it's mixed with the buttermilk and eggs. In a small bowl or saucepan, measure out a 1/4 cup or 55 grams of butter. Melt it in the microwave or over low heat on the stovetop. Pour the wet ingredients into the bowl of the dry ingredients as well as the melted butter. Using a whisk or a wooden spoon, start to fold the ingredients together until combined. Make sure not to overmix here. You want to stop as soon as you stop seeing dry flour. You'll end up with a pretty lumpy batter, but don't worry, pancake batter is not supposed to be completely smooth, so don't keep going until it is. You'll have far too much gluten development in the batter. To cook the pancakes, heat a fry pan over medium to low heat. I'm using a cast iron pan here as it's one of my most favourite pans to use. It creates really great browning as well as providing really even heat, but any fry pan you have will work great. Add about a teaspoon of butter to the pan and leave it to melt. Again, if you don't want to use butter here, you can use oil or spray oil if you would prefer. Butter provides better flavour and better browning to your pancakes. It makes the edges crispier, which I prefer. Once the butter has foamed in the pan, measure out 1/2 cup of pancake batter. You can use a 1/4 cup or 1/3 of a cup here, just depends on what size you would like. Pour the pancake batter into the centre of the pan. It'll spread on its own, no need to tilt the pan around. It'll take about 2 to 3 minutes on each side over medium to low heat. For the first couple of pancakes you make, I would recommend checking every minute or so just to make sure they aren't burning and adjusting the heat to get them perfect. You'll know they're about ready to flip when the bubbles start to burst at the top and the top outer part of the pancake is starting to look pretty set. Use a wide spatula to flip the pancake and cook on the other side for 2 to 3 minutes. To know they're fully cooked, use the same method as with cupcakes. If you press lightly in the centre and the pancake springs back, it's cooked. Remove the pancake from the pan and place on a plate. The next pancake you cook should go a lot smoother than the first, as you'll know what heat works best and at what point you should flip. Repeat the process, adding about a teaspoon of butter to the pan and using 1/2 cup of pancake batter. The recipe should make about 8 pancakes, but that does depend on what size you're making. If you're cooking for more people, or just 2, or even yourself, the recipe is easily doubled or halved. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite toppings for pancakes are. Caramelised bananas, fresh berries, maple syrup, honey, whipped cream, yogurt or bacon. So many options. Flip the pancake over and cook for a further few minutes on the other side until it's completely set. Repeat with the remaining batter. Stack your pancakes up high on a plate and drizzle over proper, good quality pure maple syrup for the most delicious brunch. I hope you'll give this recipe a try next time you're wanting to make pancakes. They taste really good, but I think the texture is what makes them pretty amazing. They're soft, thick, fluffy and tender and pair perfectly with your coffee. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share a photo with me if you make these on Instagram or Facebook. My links are below. I hope you have enjoyed this recipe and I will see you in my next video.